Hello and welcome, and we're here at Holistic Investments, and I'm your host, Constantin Kogan, and I'm delighted to have an amazing guest today, Eowyn Chen, who is the CEO of Trust Wallet. Hi, Eowyn.
Hi, Constantin. Great to have a chat with you. And then just for fun fact that you have the same name as my son. So I think that was affinity when we first met that we're like bonding. Yeah.
Exactly, that clicked immediately, like in a very good conversation, right? And I told you you have a great taste in naming people, like so. so Um, so listen, really excited to have a conversation with you today. Like, your like Trust Wallet is one of the first wallets I've ever started using, right? So for me, it's a very special episode. And we're going to talk a lot about like, your growth, how are you different from other wallets? But before that, traditionally, I want to throw a legal disclaimer that this content is for informational purposes only, and you should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or any other advice. So now we can talk about a lot of things, and your compliance department should not worry about. Um,
Yeah.
look, I know that first I want to talk about you personally, about you, because I've told you it's conversational type of podcast. So I know that you started like your career not from crypto, like you've been in many other industries. You're a Harvard alumni, like and before Trustword, you were in Binance. But tell me, like, well, what led you to to even be interested in Web3?
Yeah, so there might be a long connection point. One of the first connection point was I was driven more about being able to empower people. In When I was in college, I took a gap year in senior year to do education startup at tech because at that time Udacity, Coursera, they were rising, and that I thought it's fantastic. Now we can democratize educational resources to allow people to grow, and I think education, coupled with other means, is one of the most important to enable human beings. But then the startup failed, learned a ton, also knows that no one care about it when you fail. So that gives me tend to have a much higher risk tolerances than a lot of my college classmates who might go into the traditional businesses. I also follow to go to traditional businesses because they're nice enough to give me an offer and also give me the visa at the time to stay in New York to be with my boyfriend, now husband.
Mhm.
So I follow the traditional path of going to consulting, but working primarily with Wall Street banks, insurance companies, because my consulting company was famous for financial services. So that
Mhm.
was the time that made me really realize that even after a financial crisis, a lot of the financial industry conduct and mindset doesn't necessarily change. So even though you can have regulations to tighten up a lot of the risk controls, but then the whole tech stack behind the scene is indeed extremely outdated and very inefficient. And also 2014, when I was working at Mongo, hack was the first news I was following closely, and crypto was mostly be seen as a fintech arm. So that kind of planting the seeds until 2020, 2017, when I was in San Francisco, that half of the guys in the city are talking about some sort of shitcoin doing an ICO phrase. I am usually a contrarian thinker when everybody is extremely bullish about something. My natural inclination is I become a little bit more skeptical. So 2017, it feels like grandma is all talking about buying stocks in the supermarket kind of feeling, and I was like, I don't know how much I feel about it or how much truth I can understand about that industry. So it was not until 2018 when the market crashed. Funny enough, I thought now it's more interesting to look at blockchain and crypto to see if there is something legitimate that fundamentally kind of supported it. As I was kind of naive about the space, of course, the best way to learn is to get to chat with people. There are a couple of technical experts that I really admire as a human, and then they are still staying in that industry and building, and that gives me all to there is something way bigger and fundamental than pricing itself that got people in there. Um, and ultimately, when I was looking between AI and blockchain, now interestingly enough, both are in two biggest tech segment. Peter Thiel's quote was quite inspiring at that time. He said that AI is for communists and blockchain is for libertarian. So that go back again, kind of really rekindle when I was doing a tech startup that I care about how technology can help to enhance human beings on the everyday people layer. That naturally makes me feel that if we can pull power, ownership back to individuals' hand, then it clicks with me from the fundamental motivation level or ideological level. The most interesting pivotal moment for sure, how I get my foot in the industry was when I met the co-founder of Binance, He Yi, in our apartment. Funny enough, it was a Bible study I was hosting at that time that I was not working, and then I'm just like gathering people talking about topics, and then she came, and that's how I get to know her.
Which city was that?
San Francisco,
Okay, still
28.
San Francisco.
Yeah. So, but then we had such an honest conversation, and which I extremely appreciate. She is one of the visionary that planted the whole financial and tech and technology combined to be the future of the underlying value transfer system for internet that can better enable a much more efficient value flow, more than just information flow that internet enabled. And she was able to we discussed a lot about financial history, like why money is money, and how financial system came into where it is. I was very deeply in awe by her with how fundamental of a thinker she is and being able to understand the space and coupled with being able to empower every individual and give the ownership back to individuals' hands. So those things click really, really well. And then she was very humble and just said that I need help. At the time, Binance was 1 year old, but there are a lot of challenges, just like any company when they are growing. Nothing is truly rosy, right? She was very honest about where she might need help with, and she sees I can help her with. That get me into the door. And then you might be thinking about that's a huge help or whatever stuff that I'm helping her. No, I was like not having a fancy title. I was her assistant. I pay her bills. I drive her around. I help to find English classes while at the same time be her mouthpiece, trying to translate everything, the order, the way of thinking to the team and the management at that time. So that was actually one of the fastest growth period that I would ever have because I essentially get to have an opportunity working with Binance leadership and translating every single word and understanding how she thinks and why they think in a certain way. And so this is when I tell young people nowadays is that like don't try to pick on the job if it has a fancy title or if it's like a fancy ownership, like I'm doing high level stuff. As long as it gets you the visibility and opportunity on the table to be able to see, understand, and learn from some of the best minds in the industry, how they make decisions, what are the struggles, why they make certain decisions in this particular way, what's the methodology to think about user growth. For example, in the case of and also CC makes some really challenging decisions on the side. Like I think the 30% pay cut when I first accept the job at Binance is way worth it for the education to have. So I'll take it a pause here. It was a long answer to how I picked the interest and get to where I am and get into actually not where I am, just the door into the industry. But I find that there's a lot of twist in the potentially interesting for for conversations like this.
No, first of all, it's a fascinating story. I didn't know the story about you, and it was inspiring, right? And so, one of the key factors, what I would also emphasize that, first of all, be in the right time in the right place, like to be in San Francisco when Binance just got started. I think it's also a very big factor. The fact that you were genuine just to yourself, and you also hosted Bible studies, like which is also like, one of those like connecting points where you connect as human beings, right? Above all, right? And then you talk business, right? And so that's also something interesting, like how people like just can convert, I would say, their natural like interests like into something that can be productive later on, right? So a lot of factors like that you mentioned are truly interesting. I'm sure a lot of people like would love to like if not repeat similar path, but like also draw conclusions. And you're right. Sometimes it's not about the titles, right? And it's not about like, being genuine and being an added value. That's what I would also say. Like from what I draw from the story, like it is, so you were trying to add value from the beginning, right? And you were humble. You were trying to showcase that you don't care about like, anything else. You just want to be there and learn from the person, right? So that is amazing, right? So um, now, okay, so then you got into Binance, right? So your journey started, you were there about what, about 3 years, right?
Yeah, almost 4 years. So that
Or
was the time to get to see the bull, the bear, and then how Binance grow
Mhm.
from at that time also tens of millions of people to hundreds of millions of people. But the peak was happening in 2021, and at the turn of 2022, I was leading the marketing side for Binance, and then I was getting grilled almost every day. Is why don't we do sponsorship? Like FTX was putting this much money like on the Miami arena, like why don't we do something as fancy or as big of a eyeball grabbing. That was the moment that I think, first of all, I hit my plateau. I think that the whole brand partnerships is a complete different kind of growth businesses that many people have been doing a lot of the times, and there are its own tricks and arts behind the scene. The second is also I find that even though it's very exciting and I still have a lot to learn in those areas, but still it probably doesn't fit my own way of thinking about ROI or values. Like I'd rather be able to figure out much scrappier way, grassroots, community-based, and a performance-driven type of growth than be able to kind of intuitively make good judgments in those areas. So it becomes like a strength or a weakness feed as well. And lastly is I find myself yearning for the being closer with the industry. The reason why I joined the industry, why I believe in that, how you can provide a complete different infra stack for the future of the finance, for the future of the value chains, and for people's ownership. It disappeared from my day-to-day life at that stage when I was doing the job. So I was getting a little lost, and I was chatting with Victor, the founder of Trust Wallet, because we kind of joined Binance all in 2018, the same cohort. And then I was asking him like what he's up to. And then he said that he's looking for someone to help outside of product engineering. And I love Victor in the sense that he's a very, very good integrity person, truly care about the industry, wants to provide good product out there. And I wanted to help him. And I wanted to also learn from him too. So I basically made the switch from a high profile Binance position to at that time Trust Wallet was like less than 20 people and almost nobody other than engineers in trying to see how I can help and be at the front seat again to help the user growth and user accessibility for from what my perspective a really great product platform, engineering platform to be able to scale. So that's when 2022 earlier, like or 3 years ago, the transition happened. And now 3 years passed. A lot of things also happen as well.
And for some of the listeners who are not familiar with what happened later, right? So like an overall like the history, right? Binance acquired Trust Wallet, right? So this also important factor, right? So you were there, right? So maybe you can comment on a few things like how did the conversation even started and how did it go?
About with Victor on the transition or
Over no, the acquisition like of Binance.
oh, it was very, very early. So Trust Wallet has always been in 2017 when it first started. It was like we just wanted to hold all the shitcoin in the mobile phone. It was so hard at that time. If 8 years ago, it's all very developer focused. Wallet is a tool, like a pure developer tool. So there's a huge entry barrier for everyday people. And this is something amazing about Victor is that before even crypto, he was building apps for truck driver to plan their stop stages for long distance travel, right? So it was always about building for everyday people and how to make the complicated things simple for normies. So that's how Trust Wallet was first created. And then it's a complete community project. No one is full-time, probably besides founder himself. And then later on, the founder is like, I needed to hire someone for full-time. And then the acquisition deal comes. So he was fundraising, but in the end, it was like, maybe it's better not going through the growth phase like an independent startup, but being able to be part of the bigger ecosystems so that Trust Wallet can focus on building the product and tech and have everything else be able to provide it and help Trust Wallet to grow. So that was the thesis about acquisition. And
Mm.
sometimes acquisition can be really simple. It was just a handshake deal between Victor and CZ, and they talked about a price or whatever, and then done.
Mhm.
And then with the money that Binance provided in 2018, then Trust Wallet can start to hire the first developer. So Trust Wallet basically grow under the Binance kind of a support as an infrastructure until 2023 that we spin off from Binance, because that was the moment that we we feel that Trust Wallet needs to have a bit more freedom in order to be able to work with everybody, being chain agnostic. And of course, we will be a strong support for BNB chain ecosystem, but at the same time, if you're a good wallet, agnostic multi-chain wallet, you should also have a little bit more freedom and protection to serve everybody else in the industry, as long as it makes sense from the user growth perspective. So 2023 was the year that we spin off from Binance and then fundamentally need to be on our own. And that was hard because it's a nonprofit project for a long time that doesn't make any revenue and the income and the money. So one of my mandate is that how do we continue to grow, to scale, but at the same time be a good business by being self-sustainable. And there are not that many self-sustainable projects not relying on token sale. So
Yeah.
that was a important mission that I took on, is that I wanted to grow fundamental good businesses that's also able to hold the integrity of certain standards, be a good infrastructure, and continue the same mission that Trust Wallet have, which is how do we abstract complex things and focus on everyday normie people. We got enough loud and also very sophisticated expert DJing users in our industry, but if we wanted to grow the industry, someone still needs to serve the silent majority. And that continues to be Trust Wallet's mission, to expand the boundaries of the on-chain world.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting and fascinating story. So, I mean, but as a reminder, Trust Wallet has a token, right? Which, as of today, like we're in February 21st, 2025, you have over $1 billion fully diluted valuation. You have, tens of millions of in volume, like 445 million market cap. So you like the very least what I see, you can make money for market making or like monetizing the token. But maybe you can elaborate a little bit on some other revenue streams that maybe you haven't implemented yet, but you're looking into this.
Yeah, we actually, what you just described is not what I consider a revenue stream for us at all. So
Okay.
that go back to what I said, a fundamental good businesses is
Mhm.
what value that you created for users from your product and services, and people are willing to pay for it, or partners are willing to pay for it. And that's what I consider to be the fundamental product market fit. So for us, being able to make money, you can consider that we're B2B product, a B2C product, a B2B business. So we essentially created the whole package of a software from key management, custody, self-custody, the access to fiat on-off ramps, the swaps, the earn, the gateways, the dApp browser, etc. And then those are the potential real estate and the channels that we provided to allow users to better use partners' services. And then we get affiliate fees from those volumes, those referrals, those traffics, etc. So that's actually our business model. It's fascinating. It's definitely an economy of scale business model, to be honest. It's hard to be a wallet. If you don't have scale, wallet is not sustainable. It
Yeah.
have a time to survive. So I would say it's very fortunate that we have the scale. Like I before the call, I said that we're getting close to 200 million downloads
Yeah.
milestone, and it's an honor and very fortunate that the users will choose us, being able to conduct their activities, being able to use our software to do self-custody or storage or any of those. So those found our fundamental PMF, the product market fit. And I'm very happy that we're now self-sustainable and profitable. Our swap fee is very much similar to MetaMask fee now. So now it's actually an interesting time you mentioning about tokens is that now I think it gives the project a much better foundations to thinking about good utility and sustainable tokenomics than what when the token was first launched a few years ago, 4 years ago, then it doesn't have enough of a foundation for it to do much. And now, given the whole regulatory environment changes, the whole market sentiment changes, and this year is going to be our focus is try to see how do we then try to lead and innovate also from tokenomics governance and how to make things healthy so that the token holders and the product users are not two separate groups but more and more merged, and how to make token an actual flywheel to grow the businesses rather than the token just be a fundraising machine and a mechanism or treasury to keep the business alive. So I think we have the luxury and now the foundation being able to try something. And this is also where if any of your audiences are very creative and ingenious mind and willing to try out how to actually design and make healthy tokenomics model, I will be more than happy for any suggestions out there.
Oh yeah, that by the way, if you're talking about this part, we have a team, that is specifically focused on tokenomics and token engineering. I would say that's one of our biggest strengths. So happy to talk about it separately. And then I've also collected like some of the more, I would say, challenging questions, right? Because I want to make sure that we have honest discussion and some of the people who are using our wallet and they love it, me including. I was one of the first users of Trust Wallet, like, and I love some of your functionalities that are showcasing, like, altcoins, right? So as you mentioned, shitcoins, like they are pretty unique, and I love that about it, right? That they're displayed, even though some other wallets they have manual edition. In your case, they can be displayed like automatically. That I love about it. One of the first concerns when I was preparing for the interview was about security, right? So, I know that in the past you faced some security vulnerabilities, right? And including exploits and, some funds were lost. Like, so, as of today, like, one of the first questions I got, like, can you guarantee that the wallet is 100% safe?
Mhm. As far as I know, I think we're 100% safe, but then you should not take my claim as the way it is, nor anybody should take this claim from any other project like this,
Mhm.
because security is never going to be 100%.
Yeah.
Um, any surfaces with a touch point can be a vulnerability. And to be honest, the 90% of the struggles that we see with users losing funds are actually due to social engineering or scams. And those are not fundamentally tying to the product, but for sure, as an industry, as a tech stack, as a product, can we continue to improve and iterate on designing things, having the right standards, having the right touch point to reduce scam? I think this is what we're really trying to focus on, and
Mhm.
then potentially working with the industries all together. So the most important thing is there's no 100% security, but it also means that the product itself right now doesn't have it. Indeed, right now the product itself doesn't have any problem. So we do have struggles before that was due to open source project code, and thankfully it was actually a white hat community give us the bug bounty and realizes that here is the potential opportunity for some of the keys back in like 2023. for October for a few days that the browser extension product at that
Mm.
time had the struggles. And we were so worried about it because by nature of self-custody, it's so hard that I cannot move the funds for the users, that the users have to do it. And we were trying every single way to contact the users that they should try to move the funds by creating a new wallet that you no longer have the vulnerability with the original C phrase that they had.
Mm.
At the same time, not to catch any hacker's attention. So it was one of the 007 type of cat and mouse game that you try to get the user's attention, but you try to not get the hacker's attention. And that was a really important operations, I think, what you experienced at that time. And then thankfully, 99% of the users' funds are safe from the operations. There ended up being, I think, 100K user funds got lost, and then we contact every single one of them and refund the funds for them
Mhm.
because I think it's also very important for us to own the mistakes that it does come from us, then we own it when we make the users whole. And then from there, we have the tradition that if it was not a security vulnerability, it was just a bug, but it might cost the user's funds having any kind of risks or indeed causing the loss, then we reimburse the users very proactively. I think it's important to have that practices because I don't think anyone doesn't make any mistakes if there's a huge wallet or a huge protocol so that they never had any security challenges. Either they are not big enough to be attention or they are lying.
Yeah.
The key is how do people continue to improve on their operations, on the tech stack, on the standards, and also make users whole, own the problem, own the mistakes, and be able to go from there. And in fact, the whole challenges that we went through in the past made the users, the victims at the time, trust us more because they know that if they got another challenges again with us, they will be made whole.
Yeah.
And this doesn't happen with any other wallet out there. So we tend to actually get the blessings in disguise and have a huge user base of the hardcore loyalties due to this. So ultimately, I feel that even though we're doing a trustless business by trying to make everything verifiable, transparent on chain, from the industry's perspective, that the code rules the law, but it doesn't guarantee that code is always right. And also, just with code itself is secure enough. That doesn't happen. Then the key is how do you continue to build the non-code based operations, standards, behavior, decisions that can win the trust with the partners and with the users, which is ultimately the moat, the entry barrier that no competitors can grab that away. So I think this is beyond just wallet. I would say any kind of Web3 businesses, if you wanted to aim for the long term, want to do the right thing, besides building a good product, tech, services, it's also very important to be able to focus on trust building, and do the right thing when there are challenges and the mistakes, and issues all the time. So yeah, that's a long kind of stories again on the challenges with security. But I would say that right now we probably have the industry's one of the best security protocols. Like we are the first wallet to get the ISO certificate standards for
Mhm.
both security and privacy. And there are more than 50 audits happening. Every time that if there's a code update that touches the user's funds, it has to go through both internal audits and potentially external audits, depending on the scale,
Mhm.
the impact that it will be. And also, every internal employees will receive the trainings because ultimately employees can be the vulnerability too. So
Yeah.
how to create systems, operationally policies, so that every individual, when they are making decisions, they will take security in mind. So it's more than just the code itself. It's all about having the whole culture about
Human
focusing.
capital. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is actually the exploits. Most of exploits, when I was reading them, they actually happen because of the phishing attacks and because of the social engineering, as you mentioned, which are actually now go into insane level with AI. Like, you can like somebody can actually like fake your voice and actually your avatar and call your employee and say, hey, please send this type of like money or like this type of information to different tasks. Like, so and basically you answered the second half of this question, like, because the other question was that unlike hardware wallets, you're a 100% software wallet, right? And my question was like, doesn't make it like a little bit less secure, but with the ISO, I know the pain that it takes to kind of go through this process, like, so I'm sure you did all the precautions, like all the protocols, like to make sure like, it's 100% secure.
Yeah.
Uh,
And also, I think a very important thing, since you might have audiences, investors on your mind, I think the security mindset is not doubling on one single thing, but thinking about risk in its own context. So I will often use this example that even though we're self-custody wallet, sometimes I will do custody for my crypto assets too when the physical risk is high. Let's say if when I move from the United States to UAE, then it has a higher risk for me to lose my hardware wallet or whatever these devices that I have at hand. Then in those contexts, a centralized exchange with trustworthiness is worth it. The risk is lower for them to go bankrupt, do whatever things that might not be good enough, right? So risk and security is also relevant. It depends on the context. And
yeah.
also, it's much better to have a diversity of custody too. Don't put the eggs in the same basket, even with hardware wallet. So how to understand the specific vulnerability, how to spread out the risk, and then the context of the risk is the universal principle no matter it's in crypto or outside of crypto, but it especially applies well in the crypto context too.
By the way, as an idea, I was chatting with my good friend at VC, also in a big firm, and that even though you might have like all the precautions, but in a not now there's a unfortunately there's a big trend going on is in emerging markets, like influencers or investors are being like targeted, right? And then some of the law enforcement or mafia in particular countries, they go and like, they ask you, okay, if you want to be released, you can send some funds to XYZ, right? So with this, the only way to protect yourself is actually to have a multi-sig solution, right? When you, even if you want to send without another person or maybe two other like people who hold like, the signature, like you cannot move the funds, right? Are you looking into this solution similar to like Gnosis Safe type of?
So when we're thinking about the different kind of MPC solutions, we will be again focusing on retail's mind. And corporate treasury is a complete different standards and a complete different needs, such as how would the approval process workflow, right? Like authorization things workflow. It fits for different purposes. For us, I want us to focusing on we are servicing the normies, then what is the best balancing solutions from key management perspective for the normies? Uh, that being said, I still think that some of the good MPC or passkey solutions is great for normies, then even safer for them to have than having secret phrase because they're more likely to give the secret phrase to the scammers
Yeah.
than the MPC or passkey solutions. So it's always an evolving process, I would say. There are lots of development along the industry as well. We're going to also have some key management experiments or upgrade, what I said, the next level applying to our main product as well. We already experimented on passkey with our smart contract wallet, and then we will continue to iterate on any other good key management solutions that balance security and ease of use well for the everyday people.
Then my other question, which was very interesting, repeated two times, it's about privacy and data collection, right? So lately you've done well in different multiple integrations, and one of the integrations is MoonPay, Transact, and many other payment processors, right? But what people are asking now, like they require KYC, right? Know your customers, so that means you go through a verification, almost like in any bank right now, right? But doesn't this contradict the core ethos of decentralization and privacy, right?
Hmm. Hmm. That's a good question. I think it's very important to separate where privacy should be preserved and where you need to get the purposes done, and you know that you have to go through the necessary compliant processes.
Mhm.
So coming down to the fiat on-off ramps, I think this is a very important legal compliance requirements for the industry in major areas or beyond. So for us, we don't collect the KYCs. And we don't even provide those payment services ourselves because we're not the payment processors. But what we do again is that we try to abstract away the potential services that users wanted to get access to and help them to connect to those payment processors. And they will need to fulfill the compliance and the requirements on the payment provider side. But with Trust Wallet and with their on-chain addresses, it is completely protected that we don't have any of the personal information data, even IP, we don't have those for the users. So we hold our identity and what we do for the privacy protection the best. But then if you want to use compliant regulatory product services, then you have to go through what's required over there. And
Mhm.
even later on, let's say the industry got really popular with RWAs. If people want to get access to RWA products or services out there, then I think the industry general people also need to prepare in understanding that those are some of the products that you need to be able to have certain standards to compliant to. You can choose not to have those or interact with those, right? So then you have all your, then you don't have to do the KYC, you don't have to go through the processes. But as we serve the majority of the normies, I will say that many of them need a easy to use solutions to provide them with those channels on our frames, and they're more than happy to comply with what those processes require. We also have some really privacy focused preserving large holders and DJs use our product, but then they can use it just as a simple holding wallet, not connected to the internet, which becomes a cold wallet, hardware wallet that they set aside somewhere corner at the home, getting a lot of the money. So I think that's the interesting part is that we're just a software. The software preserves the privacy. And doesn't really collect or need to collect any individual identities. And
And
then they
that's and
the
that's
different.
exactly the point. We're sorry to interrupt, but that's what we're asking. Like, are you collecting any metadata, and are you monetizing it?
No, no, we don't even have IPs. That's why if you ask me where the majority of your users are, I cannot tell you very accurately from the IP perspective. I can only infer from where the App Store downloads might happen due to the third-party data that they have. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so we cleared that out. So you guarantee that there's no metadata. So I think that makes a lot of people happy and like, at least
I
uh
would say this. I would say this too, is that everything is evolving as well. We will do our best and then try what is the right solutions for privacy protection for to still offer the services to the largest group of people. But if the industry requirements change,
yeah.
and we had that internal discussion as well, is that do we want to stand up and fight the major requirements, regulation, or if they come into law to say that, hey, even with self-custody wallet, you have to somehow do KYC and access people, which I think will be ridiculous. Definitely not going to advocate for that. But if we still want to be the software that serves the majority of the people, then we will not be able to choose a niche, minor, smaller path. And so that will be a hard trade-off that we have to make. But I will just put the word in here is that we will do what's considered to be allowed lawful legal businesses that we do to preserve the privacy at the maximum until the paradigm and the requirements change. Then we will need to do what's necessary to serve the majority of the users.
You almost partially answered my next question, like, which is
Okay.
interesting. Yes, because my next question will also I got it regarding the push, the global push of self-custody regulations, right? For example, like what happens if, the as a society, we were decide that particular countries which are challenging, they're promoting terrorism, unfortunately, and like they're impeding like other sovereign like countries' sovereign integrity, like Russia, Iran, North Korea. Like, what happens if you one day you will be forced to implement KYC and compliance measure for particular regions? Like, um, for example, to comply with sanctions or restrict users from certain countries, right? So would you consider this?
That's why I said that if it's written in law and said that, hey, in order to serve ABC users, you have to do other things that no longer serve XYZ users, then
Mhm.
we will be considering between what is going to help us to serve our mission, which is to bring as many people on board to Web3. And we need to stay true to the mission and stay true to the majority, how to continue to be the open door for the majority of the people. And honestly, I don't see that kind of directions are coming, especially with a recent election change in the US. I'm very optimistic about the US in the sense that I think they understand and they have the structure being able to understand what is reasonable to put the software in the proper definition. And with the US influences globally, I think it will also have positively influenced the majority of the countries on Earth. Um, it's definitely an industry effort too, right? How do we want to define ourselves? How do we give the right definition to the lawmaker, to the policy makers, and also at the same time be empathetic about what might be the concerns behind some of the rules, requirement, restrictions, and can we provide a third path from the better technical solutions, from a better product solutions that serve as a solution to those concerns, rather than being resisted to it, then we will be forced to be given a requirements that nobody wants, right? So it's always, from my perspective, better to be empathetic, understand what is the problem, and figure out is there collective solutions that we can figure out towards the problem and influence on that solution as the standards is what I think the industries want to go mainstream, the mentality that already starts to emerging, and then we needed to adopt that more almost everywhere.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. And now let's talk a little bit about the future. Like I know that the entire crypto industry right now, we're looking like, even though there are challenges on global geopolitical arena, but I should say, as you mentioned, the US is now leading like the evolution of crypto and with more clear regulations and people in power who are, I wouldn't say favorable, but at least they understand the industry needs and are more, forward thinking. In terms of your features, right? I know, for example, MetaMask recently they rolled out the stake in institutional services, right? And some of your other competitors are looking into this. Like maybe you can help us to understand what other features you're looking to implement to stand out, to be unique also, and to serve, like the needs of your customers.
Yeah, yeah. There are a couple of directions as a mission that I give it to the team. The first thing is that we need to own and continue to iterate on easy to use product experiences. So what easy to use product experiences in 2025 is different from 2023, from 2020, 2017. So that needs to be a continued iteration process and innovation process along that way. And the mission that I give it to the team is that we're aiming at in 1 or 2 years timeline. The problem statement that what is the UX blocker to the mass adoption of the industry, that problem statement will disappear. So that means that all the fundamental blockers on key management, gas, and chain navigation will be solved. So we're working towards those directions. I wouldn't be able to share the specific details, but you will see some of the announcements that's coming out along the way. But those are the directions that we're working on. And I think it's extremely important for a wallet to own that bring the Web2 UX to the Web3 tech, abstract everything as the industry's front end layer is what I described to the team. The second part is very different from 2024 is definitely a year for memes. So a lot of the meme tools, a lot of the meme trading platforms are doing great. Do we have users? We see user behaviors are doing that for sure. Like our swap volume are also increasing along those lines. But what we're focusing on is probably not to be the best meme sniping tools on the market because that's not the type of the user base that we serve. But what we wanted to serve are the casual everyday people's full financial needs that can be provided by Web3. Say we
Mhm.
wanted to become the Web3 Revolut. Then if you have the fiat on-ramps, if you wanted to do casual swapping trading, you can. If you wanted to do some of the passive income earn wealth management and with reasonable risk that everyday people can sustain, we wanted to work towards that direction rather than say being the best mean trading tools out there. However, despite that, some of the good meme trading tools provide a really good standards and example for what smoothness and easy to use can be. Then we wanted to really learn from them and adopted the new standards and be able to provide that as basic product experiences as well. And we will very soon to get the stablecoin earn, which I think, given that we have 10 billion USDT from the users not moving for 6 months. I'm not even counting on the USDT, USDC that are moving, just the ones sitting idle. I think that it will help both the users to do better with their assets, capital efficiency, and at the same time helping the industry to get moving liquidities and TVLs to help the projects to continue to build better and grow better. So if we're sitting on this kind of idle stuff, then how can we better serve the users with those things? Is what we're focusing on at the moment. And then next stage is that I think AI is very important. AI as a tool, not as a narrative, is that how do we have the proper toolkit or experimenting on agents or potential agentic network that better transform wallet into the personal companion for people to navigate through the different kind of Web3 scenario is the next 3 to 5 years vision that I give it to the team that we'll be working towards. So you will start to see us having experiments here and there in little pieces as we have them along. It might be in closed group beta testing network or something else, but that's the direction that we're moving into to provide safe, grounded, more convenient next generation UI UX and experiences that people should be expecting in the Web3 industry.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest pains in the industry for sure. And do you foresee also integrating, you mentioned Revolut, like it's really ironic. I was talking yesterday with a syndicate on looking to invest in their last round. I'm a big fan of Revolut, and obviously they became an incredible example of a neobanking of scale, right? And how they executed it. So are you seeing that you will have also more integrations with neobanks and AI robo-advisories as well, right? That will allow people, as you mentioned, to give like more of a passive income narrative, and AI agents will like basically form the basket of investments.
Hmm. Connecting to the Web2 and TradFi and fintech, absolutely yes. Because ultimately, I see wallet as a user interface layer. So even custody, even though right now we're focusing on custody, but I think people should have the rights to choose whichever custody solution. Can they even connect the different accounts better so that things flow better? I personally believe that TradFi and DeFi boundaries will merge as well. So how does the merge happening and how do they land on the AI agent area or do they land on the human interface layer? I think those can happen even at the same time. So because ultimately those are humans' assets at some point. So how do people better manage them, move them, engage with them? Then I just want Wallet to play a stronger role to serve the human users in those experiences. And I can partner with everybody else behind the scene under the tech stack so that they focus on what they do the best, and I get to focus on how to surface those and abstract those and providing them to the users, human users that we serve.
Yeah, that's a beautiful summary. I know we can talk about like the wallets and the future of like of the crypto for a long time, but I promise I will be like this first interview will be straight to the point. So I have one last question, which I never notify my guests, as which is more personal to you. Like, and as a person who is learning Bible, and I'm sure you have a lot of like beautiful spiritual hobbies, like as well. I want to ask you probably the most important question during this interview. So, Eowyn, what is the meaning of life to you?
Mm. I think the meaning of life is to live out the potential, the God-given potentials, and in the process to build my character quality to become the vision that God has for me. And throughout this process, also bring God's vision on earth. Sometimes I want to be just a better vessels so that it's not going to be my wisdom that limits what God can do, but how to let God flow through me, being able to influence every single person I interact, being in the position to make decisions that can influence more people positively out there. Um, and for me, the whole life is an internship. And the ultimate job happens after life. So if you're thinking about it's an internship process, everything that I have, that I own, or the position that I'm in is just a temporary thing that I become honored to be able to steward them. So it gives me a sense of freedom that I don't need to feel so attached to even this role or even a particular company or even a particular assets that I get to have. So that sense of freedom and relief sometimes can enable me to make bolder decisions or be calmer and persevere through rather than being very fearful for the consequences. So this will be a very, very spiritual answers. But then when I tell everybody else, my teammates, my employees, I said that I just hope the stage that they have with Trust Wallet or the partners that they're engaging with is I want them to achieve the vision for their life. I want them to become the better quality humans that they aspire to be. And work is just one context and the environment that get it shape that. So can they be proud of their decisions and behavior and engagement in this context that help them to achieve the vision is what they own and they need to take ownership and think about every day. And I'm more than happy to have the company in the industry, in the platform to provide the support to help them achieve the vision of their human quality life.
That's beautiful. Like I can tell that you thought through about this question a lot. So
It's
um,
an important question, and I know that we're on time, but I think this question will become more and more challenging as AI replaces more work. A lot of the people consider their life value lies in the economic output or economic achievements that they can have bring to society. And but now it's going to be a very interesting time to see if your value is no longer about the economic output or even your work impact through the output of the work, then how do you still feel good about yourself, be confident about the values, and then being a good human beings around in your own context? I think it's very important, and we're at the stage in society that it's not just about faith and religion, but holistically, society needs to have a new social cultural value system. Otherwise, we might have way more challenges and struggles to balance with technology in this coming few years.
love it. And you're part of Holistic Investments podcast. So yeah, that's that's one of the topics that is very close, dear and near to my heart. One last thing, where can people find you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, so I'm both on X and LinkedIn, probably a little slightly more active on X because I get user complaints feedback there all the time that I'm working with. So you can find me there or on LinkedIn at Eowyn Chen.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ewan. I learned a lot from you today, and I wish that your vision with Trust Wallet will only like become stronger, that you actually will practically change not only the lives of your employees and your close circle, but like the 200 million customers that you have, like, and really, really love your vision and sincerely support you in that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Constantine. It was great chatting with you. Cheers.